Hello, this is Dread, and in this video you'll be going over my second version of Bleed Warpath Paladin. With this version I have solved a lot of the prior issues of the build, mainly the mana problem. So the idea of this version is we are utilizing a zero cost Warpath. Yes, you can get Warpath to cost 0 mana. Then of course we're utilizing Sigils of Hope to give us a little bit more damage as well by making them trigger on kill with a 6% chance. Now, they're not always up 100% of the time, but they are up enough to the point where it's worth running. And since we are running a zero cost Warpath and the only thing that is consuming mana is Devouring Orb, we are left with a build that can pretty much Warpath continually and take advantage of the cannot be stunned buff that you get while Warpathing. Now, this does have a little bit less damage than the other version due to the fact that we're not able to stack more damage as we were at the old version with the Volatile Reversal mana version. With this version, I do turn off Volatile Reversal's mana consumption slash giving mana so that we can just spam it endlessly to give us attack speed, more damage multipliers, and of course movement speed as well. Other things with the build, I was going to go with an Undisputed, but I realized a Rare Axe in the end is just better. I believe a Rare Axe in the end is just better. You'll have to get back to me on that. We get a little bit more bleed chance. I'll have to look at the numbers, but sadly we don't have any build calculators or anything where I could try the exact numbers. But then of course, Devouring Orb has actually been a very strong addition to the build, as the little AoEs that they cause after killing something, that allows us to clear packs faster than normal, as we're not doing as much damage as before, so we have to find some other way of making it feel a little bit more buttery smooth, which this does. And if you really want to, you can take some points out and go for just more damage, although we do manage to get some penetration through the lower right of the Warpath skill tree since we are not taking all that more damage anymore. But with that being said, let's get in game, shall we? Alright, here we are in game with Return of the King, as this is one of my favorite pet builds and I'm happy that I'm finally returning to it for once. Before I move on, like I said, I would like it if you would like, comment, and subscribe on the video, as that does support me and the channel and makes me want to make even more videos like this. Now moving on here, so we're going to talk about skills first. We have Warpath here. We take 1 point into Iron Reach as travel, 3 points into Whirling Blades, for travel, as well as the hit damage does not apply to our bleeds, and then we take 3 points into Unchained. With these points, it gives us a -6 to the mana cost of Warpath. Then of course we take 4 points into Unchained. That'll bring us to a 0 mana Warpath, so it takes 1 mana to start it, and then we can indefinitely hold Warpath, obviously. And then of course we take 1 point into Draining Assault and then 1 point into Enchained again, so we're at 5 minus 5 plus 11, so we're at 11 mana cost, but we're minus 11, so we can get 15% more damage. This does affect your bleeds, as you can tell if we go to the bleed bar here, bleed damage. If I hold Warpath, the 15% more damage is applying there, so that's very nice. The other version of the build was focusing way more on this, obviously, but this version is trying to stay at 0 mana, so we have to go and do other things. So you take 2 points of travel into Whirling Barrier, and then 5 points into Warforge. It gives us 30% physical pen. This is pretty much 30% more damage, ideally for us, which is very strong, as it allows our bleeds to penetrate all that physical resistance, and if they're at 0% physical resistance, then they will take 30% more damage. We do have a little bit of physical res here on the, physical pen on the passive tree with Conviction, but it's not enough to make it not worth running this. We're at 46% pen. Then of course with Volatile Reversal, since we're going for a 0 mana Warpath, if we were to use it for mana gain, it would constantly be chewing at our mana, so we do not want that, so we're going to be turning it off here. So we take 2 points into Time Sap as always, 1 point into Time Loss Vitality to give ourselves more cooldown and makes it so it does not restore our health, 3 points into Warp Time for attack speed, 3 points into movement speed as well, 2 points into Traveler's Fatigue for increased cooldown recovery speed. We do lose a little bit of health regen, but that's fine. Then 1 point into Time Lost Wisdom, which gives us even more cooldown recovery speed and no longer restores mana, so it no longer affects our mana bars, so we can hold it down infinitely and it will not matter. It also has a 2.4 second cooldown, so it pretty much has a 100% uptime on the buffs, right? Of course, 1 point into Terminal Void Rift, which makes a rift around you. And of course, 1 point into Incipient Void Rift as well, which is another rift, so you get 2 of them. So this actually gets benefited from our global bleed chance. Like for instance, all this bleed chance from our idols all also apply to our, obviously our reversal, which is pretty cool. Gives us more hits, which is always nice. 3 points travel into Disintegration, and then 3 points into Time Rifts. Enemies hit by Void Rifts take increased damage over time for 4 seconds, meaning that they will obviously take 60% more damage, which is multiplicative with other modifiers, which is very strong. That's the whole reason this build works, as I can show you here. Otherwise, without this buff, this build would not be very good. Taking like 1600 and go up to like 1400, 4000. Absolutely amazing debuff we have here, so that's why it's kind of like the capstone of the build. Then of course we have Holy Aura because we're playing Paladin. We take 4 points into Call to Arms for physical damage, 4 points into Fanaticism for increased attack speed, obviously because you want as much attack speed as possible. 5 points into Shelter from the Storm, which gives us 25% increased elemental res, as well as 30% increased elemental res, so we get up to 55% increased elemental res in the end, which then we cap it off with just simply 20% elemental res on the shield, which gives us pretty much 2 cap, which is absolutely amazing. Caps all of our elemental res with just 1 suffix, absolutely amazing. Then of course we get 4 points into Mighty Shield, which gives us health gained on block and block effectiveness. Then of course we take 3 points into Against the Odds, which gives us ward gain on block. This is very strong against very large packs of enemies that all attack you at once, as the HP you gain is you take the damage, then you gain the HP, then of course the next hit hits you, and obviously your health bounces back and forth. Very strong little bubble there. Pretty much it means that whenever you get hit, you take 21 less flat damage, which is very strong considering we're already kind of stacking other damage reduction sources. Then of course we have Devouring Orb here. We take 5 points into Void Adept for increased damage with Void Devouring Orb is active. 5 points into Abyssal Juggernaut to cap our Void Resistance. If this is not up and Void Resistance hits us, we are dead, so obviously you want to make sure it's up. Then of course we get Hollow Orb, which brings the duration up to 15 seconds, which is absolutely insane for us, meaning that we only have to stop warpathing every about 15 seconds to put back up a Devouring Orb, which is not that bad. The mana cost is also pretty low, so you don't really have to worry about running out of mana. You just gotta stop attacking for a few seconds and bam, you're good. We take 1 point into Dark Moon so that it orbits around us, so that it's always on us instead of putting it on the ground. 2 points into Abyssal Rush, which gives us increased movement speed, which is very strong because we're not running an actual movement skill with this build, so you kind of want more movement speed than normal. And of course my camera is kind of in the way of this, but we're also running Cosmic Impact so that the actual orb hits as well. This is the same thing as the Abyssal Rifts from the Volatile Reversal as well, meaning that they hit and apply bleeds as well, which gives us even more single target, which is cool. Kind of a side consequence. We take 5 points into Sightless Star, so we get the mana efficiency and the cast speed so that it doesn't cost 1,000,000 mana to cast, which is very strong for us, obviously. Then of course we have Sigils of Hope. Now this is the main breakthrough of the build. We take 5 points into Empowering Sigil for increased damage, then we take 1 point into Last Wish. Now, before, I didn't really think that 6% was enough to sustain sigils, but while in Arena, it is definitely enough to sustain sigils to a decent amount. You will have issues on single target for sustaining your sigils, but it's not that hard to walk away, put up your sigils, and then go back into the fight. So obviously, this is a pretty good way of sustaining your sigils. Then of course we take 4 points into Iron Sigils for more armor while our sigils are up. 5 points into Enduring Hope, which brings up the duration to 25 seconds so that they last a very long time, making the chance to summon on kill very strong. Of course, 1 point into Tetragram to raise our max sigils to 4. 1 point into Mediation, which doubles the health regen, which does help us a little bit. Then, of course, 3 points into Sigil of the Guardian to give us block chance. This is the main reason we're running sigils, is for block chance. Right now, we're at 69%. If we have all 4 sigils up, we're about at 81%, and we're also missing 2% here. So, in the end, we'll be at 83% block chance, which is a lot of damage reduction. Of course, these aren't going to be up always, but of course we have to make some kind of concessions with the build to make sure that our Warpath is 0 mana. So obviously the old reversal trick, if you're okay with utilizing the old reversal trick where you'd cast all your sigils and then reversal all your mana back, then of course you can go with that method, but as of right now it's not very optimized to use that method as it's very volatile. Get it? Because name, but suffice to say, this is definitely the much more casual and much more fun version of the Bleed Warpath build. Now we're going to talk about passives here, which, by the way, the Last Epoch build planner for this build will be in a comment at the end of the video as well, because it'll be there. Of course, we take 8 points into Fearless for Vitality. Obviously Vitality is strong because it gives us HP, which is very strong for this build because we're stacking HP. 5 points into Armorclad to get 10% reduced damage taken from nearby enemies, which is very strong because we're playing Warpath and we are always nearby enemies. And then of course we take 5 points into Gladiator for 5% more block chance, 2 points into Aegis of Renewal for obviously a little bit more sustain and for travel. Eventually later on, as you'll see in the build planner, we take 5 points into Axe Thrower. Then of course we take 5 points into Blade Master for 30% increased attack speed while holding an axe. The Axe Thrower will take all of our bleed and kind of multiply it twice for single target and pretty much double our single target, as you could tell in the old version of the video where you literally nuke single target. Because the beautiful thing about Penance here, it gives you throwing bleed chance as well, so all of your bleed chance is applying to your axe that's swinging, right? And it's also not reduced by the ailment effectiveness that is Warpath, right? So it's very, very strong for single target if you line it up properly. It is a little bugged. It will only shoot out of your character's line of sight like this way, kind of like straight. So you do have to line the boss up and kind of like move towards the boss for it to function properly. It's kind of weird. You'll understand it once you kind of like see it in action. And of course, Blade Master, obviously attack speed is very strong for this build. Then, of course, we take 10 points into Devouring Blade for increased damage. Increased damage, we don't have enough of it in this build. We want as much increased damage as possible with this build, so Devouring Blade is amazing for us. Then, of course, we take 5 points into Sorrow and Steel for even more increased damage on top of that, so that we can get up to our Reversal and our Devouring Orb in the Void Knight tree. And, of course, 5 points into Steel Aegis here. That's pretty much it, all you'll put in the Forge Guard tree. And of course we take 8 points into Conviction for the physical pen, so that's pretty much 16% more damage for our bleeds. 5 points into Honor for block effectiveness and block chance, very strong. About 9 points into Flash of Brilliance for a gigantic amount of HP. 7 points into Holy Symbol for even more HP, and it also almost caps our Necrotic Res, which allows us to only utilize 1 suffix of Necrotic Resistance to cap our Necrotic Res, which is very strong out of this node, right? 1 point travel into Staunch Defender, doesn't really matter for you. Then of course you take 4 points into Shield Wall. This pretty much disables your block, but gives you 12% extra block chance, which is very, very, very strong. One of the main reasons to go Paladin. And of course the other main reason to go Paladin is Penance, where we get 200% increased melee and bleed chance that pretty much enables the build to be possible. Then of course Redemption as well, which gives us bleed effectiveness, and also we get increased damage, about 50% increased damage if we have been bled recently. And of course the 49% increased bleed effectiveness is very strong, as it's a more damage multiplier to our bleed. And that's it for the passive tree. And we're going to talk about the idols now. We have, this is our S tier idol. This is exactly the idol you want. You want 4 of these. This is exactly what you want. All my other ones are shit in comparison, but you really, really, really want this one. This is like amazing. This is like the best in slot. Now for our axe here. So I realized you'll see it in the build planner, but I realized it's better to go with increased damage on your weapon, like for both prefixes. So you'd go with physical increased damage and increased damage over time, because we have enough attack speed to the point where we're kind of getting to that threshold where attack speed is kind of unimportant. Because if you did not know, Warpath attacks at 2 times per second. So for instance, if you had 100% increased attack speed, you go to 4 attacks per second, right? And of course, if you have 200% increased attack speed, you would go to 6 attacks per second, which is already just worse for your investment, right? So after the 100% attack speed is kind of worthless, right? So for this specifically, we can go for a weapon with double damage prefix. And of course, suffix, you want bleed on hit and then health on hit. Obviously, that's why we're going with a rare base instead of a undisputed. The biggest issue with undisputed is the fact that we do not get the chance to bleed on hit suffix, which is kind of like the reason why this is better than an undisputed. If we go for double prefix increased damage, right? Now for a helmet, I have health there, but I'm missing bleed effect. That's all this helmet is missing. You don't really care about anything else on the prefix. You could put strength there, but obviously, like I said, that's like the last stat you want to be going for. But obviously strength will give you increased damage thanks to the fact that Warpath gets 4% increased damage per point of strength. So obviously you'd want to put strength there. And of course, we have the Bleeding Heart Amulet, which is the main reason why this build works. If it wasn't for this amulet, the build would not work, because it is the only way for Sentinels to leech off of their damage over time, as it's the only unique in the game that has global damage leech. For at least for bleed anyways. There's avarice for elements, like for instance frostbite and ignite, but that's besides the point. So this is like your S tier amulet. It makes it so you can leech off of your bleeds, because if you did not know, you can leech off of your bleed if it is global damage leech, like this is, where it's Bleeding Heart, where it's literally all of your damage leeches life. You obviously want one of these. It's pretty easy to gamble these, pretty cheap. Cost me like 50,000 when I gambled for it. It's pretty cheap to gamble for it. And of course, for your chest, you want vitality, increased bleed effect, and increased HP. For your last prefix, you obviously want strength, but obviously, like I said, that's later on when you feel like as though you want to improve the build. Then of course, for our shield, we have block chance, elemental res to cap our elemental res, HP, and block effectiveness, pretty much exactly what you want. There has been a few nerfs to shields before then, because it was absolutely insane before. So I'm happy they did nerf shields. It's to the point where it's regarded as balanced, in my opinion. And of course, you would want movement speed bases, Quicksilver, obviously silver rings. I haven't gotten around to upgrading to that. But of course, you want vitality, increased damage, HP, and Fizz res on your rings, on both of your rings. This is pretty much what you'd want on your ring, except obviously a higher health, and of course on a different base, the silver ring base for 16% increase movement speed, so you can actually move while not warpathing. Then of course for the belt, this is a very interesting slot. The prefixes on the belt are completely worthless, so it's just better just to focus on the increased health and the hybrid health, right? You just want as much health as possible, everything else doesn't matter. Obviously, right? And of course, this is another thing that enables the build, a pair of wing guards. We really like the increased melee attack speed. It's most of our increased melee attack speed brings us very close to 100, and then of course, Volatile Reversal brings us up to that 100% increased attack speed threshold, which I wanted to get to, obviously, for this kind of build. So wing guards are absolutely insane. Also gives us a little bit of physical res as well. Then of course, Salarum Greaves, it doesn't matter what kind of type. This is literally best in slot boots. I got really lucky while making this, like absolutely amazing. Tier 4 hybrid health though, obviously you want tier 5, but this is exactly what you would want, like exactly, like perfect, right? And of course we have a Saint Tome, that's the base you want. You want increased damage, vitality, necrotic res, and HP. Obviously I didn't get lucky with this, but sometimes you kind of have to roll with the punches. And that's pretty much it for gear. So like I said, there will be a build planner down in the comments below. If you guys liked the video, obviously like, comment, and subscribe for more videos. And if you have any suggestions of any builds you want me to do next, obviously tell me. With that being said, thank you all for watching and have a wonderful rest of your evening wherever you're at, and bye.